Hi, and welcome to another episode of Nursing Your Way to Wealth, where a mental health nurse and an accountant talk about wealth creation, personal development, and financial independence in the UK to help you live the life you deserve. Hi, and welcome back. This is episode 62 of Nursing Your Way to Wealth. Alex and I had a short break last week over Easter. We just did quite a lot of resting, relaxing. But we are back for episode 62, which we've called Financial Do's and Don'ts. So this is going to be a broad thing. I was just thinking the other day whilst I was at work about some basic financial stuff that I would consider, and hopefully we would consider to be good ideas, and also some stuff that we would consider to be not so good ideas. So we're going to bring you a broad list of those and some explanations on perhaps each point. We've had a question in that we're going to answer as well. We've had some listener feedback, which is great. We'll bring in as well a good return on heartbeats and, as usual, a reasonable or ridiculous. So we'll aim to get this done within about half an hour, possibly a little bit longer. So, Alex, welcome back. Happy Easter, etc. I hope you're rested and ready. So, I'll pass to you for the question because it's definitely your wheelhouse than mine.
Yeah, hi Alex and hi everybody, and I hope everybody had a nice Easter break. So, yeah, this a question. It's quite a common question. So it's a question from Jen around. It's an opportunity that she's got to work as a contractor for a company that's rapidly expanding, and there's an option of, and the company don't want to be hire employees. They would rather have like third party contractors. And as a result, the question was, is it better in this situation to be a sole trader or to um, incorporate as a company, as a limited company, and work with that respect? So it's quite a cool, what sounds like a simple question, but it's really tricky to answer. And I think, as with most things with finance, it really is, it depends. But I could just give a quick couple of minutes of background on the difference and what that kind of means in practice, and what my view is generally on them. So I guess what's the difference between a sole trader and a limited company? And the main big difference is that it's called a limited liability. So, and that means limited financial liability. So, in very simple terms, if you were to get sued, if you're a sole trader, you as a person, you individually have got to foot the bill for that, and you are liable for any financial repercussions of being sued. A limited company, what you're doing when you create a limited company is you actually set up a separate legal person, which is separate from yourself. And so companies who buy from you, or customers that buy from you, are buying from the company as a separate legal person, not you as an individual. And the best way I always think about it myself is, if you're a window cleaner and you go around and you clean people's windows, and you may earn £30,000 a year from cleaning windows, you very likely are a sole trader, and it's a very simple kind of low low income business. It doesn't make sense, and I'll come on to this later, to kind of go through the headache of incorporating and operating a limited company for quite minimal gain. And there's not much can happen if you're a single person cleaning windows in terms of being sued to the point of financial ruin. However, if you are that same window cleaner and you operate across an entire region and have got 100 people out cleaning windows on your behalf, it makes much more sense to become a limited company. The people work for that company, and become a director of that company. So that's the kind of how I've it's always been explained to me in the context of window cleaners, and that has stayed with me. But that's kind of the basics of it. So what it means in practice is, there's implications for, there's the operational kind of ongoing administration of a business, of which are very different. There's tax implications and there's ways that you pull out income. But if you are a limited company, what you're doing is setting up. You register at Companies House and you create a business, and that business is then a separate legal entity, you become a director of that company. And with that becomes you have responsibilities. So every year you're going to have to, so your business will earn income. So in the case of Jen, it would be that contractor pay, sorry, that company will pay her a contractor fee. That's her company's revenue. You're going to have to pay, there'll be certain expenses that you can deduct from that. So you'll probably pay yourself a salary. There might be some expenses around clothing and traveling and equipment, which you can deduct, and then you'll make a profit, and then you're going to have to, what you do, you have to file accounts every year at Companies House. So you probably have to do that through an accountant. And then what you would do is the company makes profit and you've got to pay corporation tax. And then you'll also have to pay the benefit of having a limited company is you can take smaller salary, but then you can take the remainder of your income as dividends. And those dividends are taxed at a lower rate. So you've got the benefit of that income. And therefore, overall, you can bring down your individual tax bill. So as a director of that company, you'll then have to submit your own tax return almost as an employee of your own firm, receiving an income from salary and dividends. And then you'll have like separate bank accounts for that company and all within that company's name. So it's operationally and administratively is quite the burden, but there are benefits in that. And these tend to be if you're looking to scale out a business and for it to grow, limited companies are definitely the right way to do it. If you're only expecting to earn a bit of, a few £1,000s on the side, there's no point in setting up a limited company. I guess as a sole trader, it's more akin to being an employee. So you will still contract directly. The company will pay you into your own bank account. And every year you'll have to do a tax return. A little bit like, and your income will look a lot more like it would do if you're an employee. And then you'll still have to pay tax, but you'll end up being you're a self-employed sole trader. You'll pay income tax on that as opposed to paying a corporation tax and then also separately paying your income tax. So it's quite the administrative burden. I think the general kind of rule of thumb is if you're expecting to be earning, I think it's around about £75,000 or £80,000 a year, then it can make sense to be a limited company, but you're almost wanting for it to really make sense, you're probably looking at the hundreds and multiple hundreds of thousands of pounds a year, and then ultimately having employees. If you're wanting to scale a business and grow it, limited company definitely makes sense. And then there's also potential implications for if you're taking out a mortgage or you're remortgaging or wanting to buy a house, banks look at things differently. So if you're a sole trader, you're self-employed, your income is a lot less stable. So they may require either a higher deposit or a higher interest rate to be paid on your mortgage. But it's worth checking with like a mortgage broker what some of the implications may be for doing it. So it's a lot of information. I know I've been rambling on, but it is quite a complex area. But I think generally, if you're looking at earning larger amounts and growing a business, limited company makes sense. If you're just doing something quite small scale and don't expect it to be going on for that long, then sole trader is probably the right way to go about it. I think in both cases, you're going to have insurance. So you'll have to have public liability insurance or insurance specific to your field to essentially back you up if you've got some funds if something were to go awry. So a bit of a rambling answer, but hopefully I've covered some of the key points and differences around that.
Yeah, I think it's difficult, obviously, because we don't know the ins and outs of the situation. It's I guess, I mean, would talking with like a potential accountant be a good idea in terms of understanding the nuances of both of those things, and if like an idea of which might be the better option? From what you've said,
within that field, I would probably lean more towards the limited company, like the limited liability company, which is, I assume, is that what LLC stands for?
Yes, correct.
Ah, okay. So I just joined those dots as you were talking. Yeah. Okay.
So definitely, there's a lot of good information on like HMRC and just online. Like there'll be quite a lot of like websites or YouTube content on the relative merits. But I think it's the practicalities of it, which is often why you would have like pay an accountant, like a local accountant or bookkeeper to manage almost that. They'll do the tax return, the filing with HMRC, they'll do your accounts, because it becomes quite involved because it is a separate entity that you're creating. And then as a director, you've got responsibilities on that. And I think it's just that mindset shift that you're now a director of a company, you're not just an employee. So it creates, it's a lot more responsibility. Your name's out there in the public as a director, published on Companies House. Your accounts are published on Companies House for the public to see. So it is a bit of a different mindset, but then with it come more benefits in that you can, taxation being lower tax tends to be the main one.
It's kind of the way I expect it. There's never going to be an answer. Like one of the two is not going to be the easiest, lowest effort, most rewarding option.
No,
it's going to. I kind of wish it was, but it's a combo of both. Yeah, you're right. I mean, this won't be the only time this question's been asked. It's been asked thousands or millions of times. And I would say something like YouTube specific books around the idea will give you a really good idea, or even ask someone who currently does it. Within that field, ask them what they do and also why they do that. So I think, hopefully, Jen, that's helped a little bit in terms of understanding nuances between the two, but obviously not advice from our part, Alex's part. Just get some specific advice, check the insurances you would need. Definitely hire a good accountant who has knowledge and expertise in that area as well. But yeah, good question. We'll keep them coming in and we'll answer them as well. So next up, we've had a listener email from a chap who didn't leave his name, actually, but it's under the moniker of Dad on Fire. And I think he's got a blog of the same name. So it's just dadonfire.co.uk. And he says, hello, I wanted to thank you for your podcast. I've only just come across it, but I'm quickly ploughing through all of your back episodes, which will be 61 of them at this point. So yeah, I appreciate the effort. And he says, just wondering, in your back catalogue, have you covered off unpaid parental leave as a potential option for people in the latter part of their fire journey? He heard one of us mention in a recent episode that it was me, right? Really happy to find out that I could buy an extra week's annual leave. So in further detail, he says, with unpaid parental leave available to all parents regardless of employer, an employee has access to 4 weeks off per year per child. They also get to retain all of their full annual leave allowance, so it doesn't use any of that up, and it also maintains your employer pension contributions. So instead of that being kind of adjusted down for working less. So essentially what this boils down to is you can access an extra 4 weeks off unpaid, keep your job at the end of it. I've done a little bit of extra reading on the government website under eligibility, which is freely available for anyone to look at. You need to give your employer 3 weeks notice or 21 days notice. You have to take it in weeks. So you have like a block of 1 week or a block of 2 weeks, something like that. You can't take ad hoc days anywhere. And it's something that is available. So long as you've worked for that company for 1 year, and let me just bring up the eligibility thing. Yeah, work for the company for a year. You're named on the child's birth or adoption certificate. You're not self-employed or an agency or a contractor. So sadly, Jen, if you are contracting, you wouldn't fall within this remit. You're not a foster parent. And the child is under 18. And your employer apparently can ask for proof, like a birth certificate, so long as it's reasonable to do so. And they cannot ask for proof each time an employee requests leave. So it's just an additional thing. And a lot of the entitlement stuff on the government website and the reasoning for it is it's said to spend additional time with family. Spend more time with your children and grandparents, extended family, to settle a child into new childcare arrangements and to look at new schools, amongst some other reasons. So if you feel like you're within need or that could be something that's of use to you, discuss it with your employer or with HR, give them a couple of weeks, 3 weeks notice, and take a little bit of extra time knowing that you've got a job to come back to. Of course, factor in the loss of salary for that kind of couple of weeks or whatever, but this is an ideal thing of what your emergency fund can cover.
Yeah, and that's a really nice question, actually, and something I really hadn't considered, and completely not aware of it at all. So thank you for raising that.
Yeah, I just wish he'd left his name, but he hasn't. He's just left the moniker of Dad on Fire. And I had
Dad on Fire.
Yeah, I had a quick look on the blog, and I can't see a name either. So I think he's probably kept that hidden. But no, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. If you have any other questions or you want to come on and chat to us, do send us another email, and we'll make it happen. So I think after 16 minutes, we're just onto the main body of the show. Unless, Alex, sorry, do you want to do a quick return on heartbeats?
Yes, I will do a quick return on heartbeats, actually. So this was for over the weekend, Easter weekend with my family. So I have a little niece. She's just turned 3. So I opened up a junior ISA for her and got her started with £500 in investments. So that was and it took about 10 minutes of setting up the account and getting all the details in. She's on a good start and got my sister and my parents on board with putting any extra money, rather than like the birthday money and stuff. We're going to put it in there rather than if there's nothing that she needs, we'll put it into that investment account. So
that's ideal. Yeah. Have you done any maths on what it will be worth when she's 20?
I haven't.
Okay.
But I'm just about to do that. So when she's 21, yeah, it would double more than assuming 5% interest would be like £1,200 a year. £1,200.
Yeah, total. But that doesn't include extra money being put in, does it? By family,
correct.
Friends,
no,
parents?
That's just if nothing gets touched. So.
Yeah, but what a great use of money. That will get her on the way to, I don't know, driving lessons or something.
Absolutely. So that's, so that was a nice quick return on heartbeats.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure she'll appreciate it when she gets to whatever age she can make use of that. It certainly makes the entering adult life a little bit easier, for sure.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Okay, right. Let's talk about the main thing, the main body, financial do's and don'ts. This, to be honest, came as an idea that I had just as I don't know what I was doing. I was definitely at work, and I just was thinking about just a shortened list of things that financially are good ideas, and then some also ideas that financially that are not good. So, Alex, do you think I should just like read the list, or do you want to do one for you, one for me, or how do you want to work it?
I think it's your list. So I think let's maybe just go through read out your list.
Fair enough. So they're kind of basic. There is some nuance as well, but firstly, the do's. So the good ideas is to spend less than you earn. Sounds obvious, but a lot of people don't do that. If you do find you're spending more than you make every month and getting into debt, have a reshuffle, have a rethink, look at where that extra money is going and try and correct those behaviors before it sinks your ship. 2, have an emergency fund. We've just discussed that. You can have some extra time off, apparently, according to the UK government. So an emergency fund will help fund those weeks extra that you can have off. Invest monthly. A perfect example of this is, Alex, your return on heartbeats for your niece. You've put in a lump of money that will double plus a bit in 17 years. If someone were to add £50 a month to that within your family network, the final figure would be many, many multiples of 1,200. Yeah. So the more money you can drip into investments every month, the better. Obviously, the better off you will be.
I'd just say as well that there is no minimum that it needs to be. I don't think any amount. And even if you start with £25 a month, it's what you're doing is building the habit, and whether if you've built the habit over 3 or 4 years, after you've just started working, when you've your salary starts to increase and you've got more disposable income, that muscle is already developed. And it's the same effort to put £25 in as it is to put £250 in, as it is to put £2,500 in terms of the actual doing.
The admin, the paperwork.
The admin of it, yes.
Yeah, it's just buttons and dials, isn't it? It's very simple.
Absolutely right, yeah.
And it's a good point, scale it as you earn more, right? No point putting 5% in, and then if you end up doubling your income over your lifetime or something, it's going to end up being a lot less as a percentage. So increase that as you go. Make it slightly uncomfortable, I would say. Point 4 here, I've got to see if you can earn more money. Are you fairly paid? Are you not? Like, look at what you do for your company or your job or your sector, and look for other jobs that have skill sets that are similar to yours. Is the salary similar? Are they being paid more than you? Do they get better benefits than you? Is there a work from home option? Etc., etc., etc. So companies generally, and this is a broad rule, which I believe to be true, but they will pay you as little as they can get away with. So think about what value you bring. Negotiate that with your employer. We've done a whole episode on negotiating salaries as well. But see if you're being paid the market rate. You might find, if you've been sitting in a job for a number of years, that you can swap companies and you can earn a lot more money. We had some feedback from Joe a number of episodes ago. He went from I think £40,000 to £58,000 by one company move, which is amazing. So see if you can do that. Next, we have learn new qualifications and skills to remain relevant in the workforce. The last thing you want is to be managed out because your skill set no longer fits, and then you'll find it quite difficult to find another job in that field at that level, at that pay grade. Another thing around this is experiment with things, like test it. Be your own science experiment. See what a month is like without any subscriptions. Pause them for a month, cancel them. Does it materially impact your life? If it doesn't, good, pocket the money, invest the money, spend the money in a different area, something like that. But test it, see how you feel. Your brain will make up these things of, I definitely can't live without these 4 streaming platforms because I might miss a TV show. But if you're working 40 hours a week, you're looking after kids, you're doing your hobbies, how much time do you actually have for TV?
I think that's a really good, really important. I think just that trying something, like nothing has to be forever. And you never know, you can try something, you might find buying and selling things on the side becomes really, you might think it's really impossible, you don't want to do it, but it becomes a real hobby of yours and actually starts to help you earn money. We've got this thing working at Amazon with decisions, they call it one-way door and two-way door. And it's that sometimes if you go through one door, you can always go back through it if it doesn't work. And those are two-way door decisions. Or that one-way door, that once you've gone through, there's no going back. And a lot of these things, like you said, cancelling the 4 streaming platforms for a month, you can always resubscribe to them the month after. It's not...
it's very easy to resubscribe.
Yeah, it's a lot harder to cancel, I think. But it's, that point, there's absolutely no harm in trying anything on the side. If anything, it's like the Thomas Edison thing. It's when he invented the light bulb, he was like 1,450 attempts or something. And he said he wasn't failing, he was just figuring out that there was 1,300 things that didn't make the light bulb work or something like that.
Yeah, he's learning what doesn't work and then eventually learns what works.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's a good, just another example of this is I used to use my phone as an alarm clock. So I used to tell myself I need to have it by my bed so it wakes me up in the morning. And what would happen is I would wake up in the night sometimes, look at my phone, spend too much time looking at it in the bright light at night when I'm trying to sleep. It would impact my sleep. So for a week, I tried putting it on charge downstairs. I wake up without an alarm now, and I don't miss it at all. And I feel more refreshed when I wake up. So if it didn't work, I'd have kept it. If it did, you can continue. It's nothing's permanent unless you're getting a tattoo, I guess. Even then, they're not particularly permanent. The other thing, a couple more do's. I've got read and talk about money more. Write yourself a 1-page plan of where you're at, where you want to get to, and the most important bit is how you're going to bridge that gap. So if you don't read about it, you don't talk about it, it's not going to magically kind of via osmosis appear in your brain. You have to actively like do the work. So in order to change your financial situation, you're going to have to put some effort in. It's not going to happen overnight. The last one I've got is not really about money. It's about life. And it's just rest. Like look after your physical and mental health, which is why Alex and I decided to take an impromptu break last week. So Alex was very good. He told me he couldn't do an episode. And I said, okay, I'll do one myself. Didn't do it. Was too overworked at that point. Had a small bout of anxiety at work, which I don't mind admitting at all. It happens to us. It happens to me as well. And I just couldn't manage doing all of that. So I just paused it for a week. And I don't think anything massive will happen from this episode being released a week after than one in between. We've certainly had no emails about it.
Yeah, quite right.
And if you do look after yourself, you'll just feel better. It's the same thing. Sleep well, eat well, stay hydrated, like give your body and mind the nourishment they need and very little of the things that they don't. So, Alex, that's the end of my do's list. Have you got anything else you've been thinking about you'd like to add?
I just would pay off any expensive debt.
Yes, of course.
But I think that makes sense. And I think a lot of them, I think that resting and looking after yourself is really important because I think the more rested you are, the more sharp you are, the more focused, easier to make decisions, you perform better at work and perform better on tasks. Then it's like this self-fulfilling cycle, isn't it?
Absolutely. You kind of get out what you put in, for sure. Okay, so my don't list, some of these are a little bit opposite of the do's. So the first one I've got is don't overspend or get into debt, which we've just talked about. If you're in debt, try and get out of it. You can see our separate episode on that. Spend less than you make, right? Don't overspend. Don't try and time the market or invest all of your money in high risk assets or stuff you don't understand. Okay. There are a lot of people getting talking. There's a lot of noise about people getting rich from meme coins, crypto, etc. There'll be far more people who lose out. Yeah. If wealth is going one particular way, that money doesn't come out of nowhere. It comes from people to people, company to company. Yeah. Credit and debt are the same sides of one coin. Okay. Where there's credit, there is debt. Where there's debt, there is credit.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, and I think it's that point of diversification as well. And I think we got an episode on that and about asset allocation. But if you do want to speculate, make sure you've got a really solid foundation of a house in place first before you then risk all the house on some crazy coins. And yeah, people have got really, really well off with some of these coins, but fundamentally they're relying on the next person paying more for that coin, and it actually makes sense to develop a huge industry on trying to sell these coins with people who've been in them for a decade to now cash out as billionaires on the back of some bus driver then wants to become a billionaire and that's selling that dream. But it's just be really careful with that stuff.
Yeah, it's known as the pump and dump, isn't it? Buy something for pence and then pump it, hype it all the way up, write articles, paste all over the place about it, Reddit, etc. Create the hype and the buzz. People then buy that same thing. It inflates what you've bought a lot of times, thousands of times. You can then sell out for a humongous profit and you leave other people holding the bag on the way down. You see it a lot with like the GameStop meme stock stuff from Wall Street Bets on Reddit. Yeah. Very few people got life-changingly wealthy. A lot of people lost a lot of that money. It's like an inverse candlestick, basically. It just sucks up money one way and it gets paid out to the people who really instigate it. It's not everyone gets wealthy that way at all. Very, 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 very few of them. 3, don't sweat the small stuff. So at home, because I know that we've got our biggest bills and our biggest stuff sorted, which is our investments, our housing and transport and food costs, I don't sweat buying something for £5 here, there, or wherever. I don't sweat replacing shoes. I don't sweat like small expenses. So long as you get the big stuff right, the small stuff won't matter and it will take care of itself. the next thing I have is don't put things off. If you can do something within 2 minutes, it's worth doing then and there. If you procrastinate, which brains love to do, you'll end up stacking up all of these tasks. It will take a couple of hours to do them all in one go. If something can be done within 2 minutes, do it now, because by the time you've done, like, your motivation will have disappeared by that point, and you've done whatever you're supposed to do. And do it today rather than putting it off to tomorrow, because the workload, the burden seems less.
Yeah, and I was going to say, it just seems to create noise whenever I do that in my own head, and it just like hangs over you.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, I definitely just need to take that book downstairs.
Yeah, should have done that.
Just
should have done this.
Take it down. It's not a big deal.
No.
But it's like, oh God, that's like, if you do it then the next day, it's then stuck with me then for hours.
Absolutely.
Absolutely not worth the small amount of effort. But
no, and it'll pop into your head at random times when you least expect it as well. And we have a rule in our house that no one goes upstairs or downstairs without bringing something with them. So there's always something that needs to go up and something that needs to come down. And we always say, like, think about it for like 30 seconds. Do you need to bring something down for tomorrow, next week, etc.? This might seem obvious, but don't gamble, right? The only people getting rich off of gambling are the people who own the companies, like the betting company CEO that paid herself 400 million quid.
Yes, Denise Coates, the Bet365. She owns that. Yeah,
madness. So that 400 million pounds has come from, I don't know, 40 million people betting a tenner and losing.
Yeah,
or probably less people betting more money and losing. Likely they can't afford to lose it. And I can probably, this sounds a bit weird, but bet you any amount of money that she herself doesn't gamble.
Yeah.
With the money she makes. It's an obscene amount to pay yourself. That money's got to come from somewhere, and it's small amounts, all filtering one way. The last two I have here are don't stay in jobs that aren't right for you. There are many jobs out there. If you're in employment somewhere and you don't enjoy it, you think you could do something better that's better for you, either financially, your health, mental health, physical health, etc. There's a job out there with different benefits that you think would improve your life in a meaningful way. Yeah, don't stay there. I've stayed in jobs before too long, and I've only realised it once I've stepped out of that and realised actually I should have left 6 months ago or longer. So ask someone who knows you well what they think. Obviously, don't make it your boss, because they'll obviously tell you to stay. They've got a vested interest. But yeah, do think about those things. And again, it brings back to see if you can earn more, or can you get a better package for your skill set that you have. The last part I have here on the don't list is don't sell investments at the wrong time. And I'd like to add to that, don't sell because of market noise. Sell when your financial plan dictates you would sell, which you'll have written on one page, signed it, dated it, and written with a sound mind. Everything else in between is noise.
Yeah, I'd add that. I'd agree to that. I think certainly now, if you look around, and there's obviously all the tariff turbulence, and people tend to. It's very natural to people would panic sell because of what's going on now. But if you've no need for that money right now, time and history has told us to always ride out the volatility. And if you're doing all this now for yourself in 20 years, you don't need to be selling right now.
And don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah, I actually had something I read this morning about a similar vein around not panic selling, and it said, this snippet from an article, it's like portfolios that missed the S&P 500's best day since 1990 would lag those invested over the whole period by about 10%. So that missed the single best day. Those missing the 5 best days would trail them by 35%, and then miss the best 10 days, and your gains over the period are more than cut in half. So, and it's all about, because often some of the biggest gains in the day come within the time period where there's the biggest drops as the market recovers and people realise they've overreacted. So unless you are an absolute oracle and can predict the absolute bottom of everything and factor in that you'd have to wait for 2 days for your trade to clear because of its the settlement times, then I think you're best just hanging on in there if you don't need the money. And I would also argue if you needed the money, you shouldn't have had it in such a volatile place in the first place.
No, that's again what an emergency fund is for. It's to buy you time so you don't need to sell investments at the worst time possible, which is when they are low. Be able to weather all storms. We would advocate as well, like create like an all-weather financial plan. In fact, that's what everyone should call their one-page financial plan, a plan for all weathers for yourself, and your family. I also think as well off the back of that, having someone accountable, like you can be accountable to someone. For example, like Alex, if I email you or I ring you and I'm like, I'm thinking of selling 10% of my portfolio because of X, Y, and Z. What do you think about it? You're going to have a very different like opinion and a view to me. And I'm just thinking about if people are concerned about it, like talk to someone else who knows about it. Talk to someone who knows, who thinks with like a clear mind. You can email us if you want, but the majority of our answers are going to be don't sell, stay. And the only reason I can think of would be something absolutely life-changing, like preventing foreclosure on a house, something like that, life-saving surgery that you need across the globe, anything like that. But at the same time, that's what your emergency fund is for. So if you're listening and you don't have one, and you've been getting twitchy about the tariff turbulence, one, listen to our tariff turbulence episode. Two, start creating an emergency fund. If you have some that you don't think is enough and you're feeling uneasy or any nauseousness kind of inside your body, listen to your body. It will keep the score and it will tell you how you're feeling. If you are feeling that way, it just tells you and probably us that your emergency fund is not big enough. So add a bit more to that until you feel more comfortable.
Yeah, I mean that's really good idea.
Yeah, so that's all I have on my do's and don'ts. If anyone has any other ideas of what they'd add to do and don'ts, please feel free to email them in, and our email address will be below. It's a hastily scrawled list. It took me like 5 minutes at work, so I don't expect it to be like a cover-all thing, particularly. So there will be gaps and mistakes. Email them in, and I will learn from you as well. And perhaps we could do another one of listeners' do's and don'ts or stuff they've learned from, for sure. Alex, is there anything else you want to mention about the main body, or do you want to do a reasonable or ridiculous idea?
No, I think I'd just get if there's any listeners out there with different opinions, then please share them.
Reasonable or ridiculous?
Yeah. So I heard, just overhearing some stuff in the office today whilst I was checking my NHS pension, that one of my colleagues has opted out of the NHS pension, and because they want more money to spend today. I don't know, is that worth a reasonable or ridiculous? Because that is a ridiculous idea.
100%. And I think maybe just explaining why it's ridiculous, from my opinion, in that the pensions are, because of the power of your employee match, even though you might be getting a little bit more money today, you're actually losing out on free money from your employer, because they'll often match up to quite I think it's quite a decent amount within the NHS. So that's free money that you're actually giving up. So you're probably actually giving yourself a pay cut in total terms. And also you lose out on a load of tax benefit as well, because pensions go in before your income gets taxed. It actually reduces your taxable income, so your tax burden goes down. So, and then as a result, you actually get more money tax effectively in your pension. So silly idea in my opinion, and you're not looking after your future self. And you could do a whole episode on that. But I think it's a ridiculous thing to do.
Yeah, I agree. In considering this is also a DB and NHS scheme where the NHS put in 20% of your income, if you put in somewhere between 9 and 10.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and what it does is it builds you a guaranteed income after you retire. But it's not like, I looked at some one of my colleagues' statements again today, and it showed something like £4,500, and then she was like, well, I've been paying into this for years and years. What do you mean it's only worth that much? it should be way, way more than that. She had a small panic, and I was like, hold on, take a breath. This is how much income it's going to generate you per year in retirement. It's not your entire pot. So it's a promise of an income which is index linked, and it will run until you pass away, which is an incredible, like it might only be £4,500 now, but combine that with the state pension and you're already at what, 14-ish £1,000. So it's going to pay you £1,200 a month where you're at now. You've got 20 years of work left. So if you choose to stick within the NHS, that will only compound. If you're not, you can always pay some of your salary into a private pension. And the good thing with pensions right now is if you're paying 40% tax, you get 40% tax relief on the way in. And when you claim it, when you are retired, you'll pay 20% income tax at that point. So you're getting double cream on the way in, and you're only paying like one cream on the way out.
Absolutely. Yeah. One of the big benefits.
Yeah, humongous. Absolutely humongous. And also looking after yourself in your most vulnerable years is, I think, a very, very good use of money. Like, you don't want to be beholden on the state at that point. You want to have some semblance of control, comfort. When you get there. Okay, so that was our sort of roundabout reasonable or ridiculous. Alex, shall I do a quick summary? Or do you want to do it?
No, happy for you to do it.
Yeah, okay. So we've talked about, first up, partially, I think, answered a question on limited companies versus sole traders, the ins and outs of those. The sole trader, if you're lower earning and you don't plan to earn over kind of £70,000-£80,000, there are different tax structures for it. Limited liability companies, LLCs, they offer more protection. They do additional lead insurances, especially ones if you're in a particularly niche area. There are a lot more effort, but they have good benefits in terms of salaries versus dividends that you can draw. Can have some drawbacks as well. Our suggestion would be to speak to someone who is qualified in that area, perhaps an accountant that deals with that for clients as well. We've read a listener email from a chap called Dad on Fire, probably got another name as well, but thank you for that as well. And we talked about 4 weeks parental leave, which is available to everyone who works in the UK if you've worked there for 1 year or more. There are some stipulations. You have to take it in week blocks, and you have to give your employer 3 weeks notice of that. More info on the government website. We've talked about our basic list of financial do's and don'ts, which I'm not going to repeat. We played a small game of reasonable or ridiculous, and we both agree it's ridiculous to opt out of certainly the NHS DB pension scheme, defined benefit pension scheme, and in fact any other defined benefit pension scheme if you can find one outside of the public sector. That has been episode 62 on financial do's and don'ts. If you've got any thoughts or feedback, you can email them into us at nursingyourwaytowealth@gmail.com. Alex, thank you for your time, my friend, and I'll catch you next week.
Yeah, a great summary, by the way. And thanks everybody for listening. And please send in any questions, feedback, comments. Be very much appreciated.
None of what we discuss on the show is to be considered financial or health advice, and we recommend you always do your own research or consult an independent financial advisor or a doctor when making your financial or health decisions.